You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. This episode is sponsored by Dynamics 365 UG. Dynamics 365 UG is the world's most influential user group community of Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM users and partners. Across the globe, members share a common goal of maximizing and advancing the performance of Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM so that individuals and companies can improve operations, overcome obstacles, and exceed goals. Check out the website at crmug.com. Here. So I was thinking the other day, and I actually wrote a LinkedIn article about this. Outlook is kind of like a necessary evil, is how I've typically viewed it. Do you share my opinion?
Yeah, I live, eat, and breathe and require Outlook for my day-to-day. So right. Absolutely.
And it's like, I don't think it's Outlook's fault. Outlook is kind of a victim of its own success. And in the last, I don't know when Outlook gained prominence, I think it was probably Outlook 97 was really when it really took off. I think the first version of Outlook I touched was Outlook 95. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many versions before that there were. When did you first use Outlook?
Yeah, I first started with a preview version of Office 97. I got it from the Microsoft Extreme Preview event, which is before the Dynamics Extreme conference, not to be confused there. But every attendee in these simulcast sessions in movie theaters across the U.S., in your little bag of goodies, you got a copy of Office 97 Preview Edition, as well as a copy of Monster Truck Madness.
I had Monster Truck Madness when I worked at Best Buy in 1996, I think it was. The Microsoft guy came and he gave us all Monster Truck Madness.
Looks like they were trying to spread the word on the Microsoft gaming group.
But you know what? I remember, actually, I used an application called Schedule Plus, which was a predecessor to Outlook 97. And I specifically used it because I think I got like a Franklin planner, and they had a plug-in for Schedule Plus that was supposed to help you prioritize your time. I never did that good with it, but I actually, now that I remember, I had kind of wiped that out, but I just remembered I did use Schedule Plus, so I guess that makes me used Outlook since the beginning. But
right
I think the problems that people see with Outlook are several things. Number one, it is a beast. Everything and its brother wants to plug into it. Of course, you and I know and love Dynamics CRM. It's just had an Outlook integration for years. But if you look at the add-ins in Outlook, you'll see iTunes in there. You'll see Adobe in there, GoToMeeting, Join Me, Skype. All these things plug into it, and it just becomes this beast, and it's just trying to do everything. It's designed to be your whole world, and the problem is, you don't want it to be your world, because then you spend your whole day scheduling stuff and updating your calendar, but not doing any work.
Yeah, and being totally reactive. Yep.
Yeah, it's also really visually overstimulating. There's so many buttons, so many different colored buttons, and a ribbon with a million different options. And it just becomes a time sink where you an hour and a half later, you figure out, wait, I've just been in Outlook this whole time, replied to some emails, and not really done any work today.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there again, it's not Outlook's fault, but I think I found that the default configuration, or the default layout and view in it makes it not necessarily optimal to the way that I work. So a couple things I found, and some of these may be old hat to you, but getting into it, the first thing I found is the white theme in Office 2016. I think this is one of the things they changed between 2013 and 2016, and I don't think it's necessarily a positive change in that it's very very bright white. Even the what they call the colorful theme is mainly a big white screen. And looking at it for a while, it gets a little visually tiring to me.
Yeah, so I tell you what, Joel, I haven't really played with much of the theming, but I do know what you mean when it comes to kind of the harshness that can come with having that screen in front of me. So that's definitely one I think I'd consider trying that out. But as we talk about it here, it kind of reminds me of back in, this is, late 90s again, memories of all the personalization and theming. And I think I went a little overboard on it back then, so I'm maybe hesitant to change some of those things. Things like that would take over all of Windows even. Did you ever use window blinds?
Yeah, that was like, I used that, I think, was it with Windows Vista or something or Windows 98 or
98,
no, Windows
you
98.
could start.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I'm sometimes in meetings where, especially it seems developers will like make their Visual Studio screen black, and I never can understand how people can work there. But what I've found is, for me, the dark gray theme is actually pretty nice, because I think if you read UX studies, the best contrast is dark text on light background. So I don't like white text on dark background. That's more tiring. But what I do like about the dark gray, it still leaves the messages and the appointments and the calendar light background, dark text. It does it a little bit more of a gradient, but then all the stuff like the ribbon and everything is a gray color or a darker gray color. And what I find is it focuses me on the messages, not the stuff around the messages. So that's what I find the dark gray is to me. I've been using it for several weeks now. I found that to be a little bit less harsh, and I feel like I can more quickly move through things because I don't keep glancing off at something else.
So, question for you on that: what brightness do you usually keep your screen on? Like either your laptop or your monitor?
I have mine set like on my Surface, where it automatically adjusts based on the lighting in the room.
Okay.
And that usually works. Sometimes I make it brighter. On my desk, I've got a larger monitor, and you know what? I think it's not quite the brightness. It's like the next to the brightest setting.
Okay, so I usually keep mine pretty dim. I wonder if the fact that I keep it as dim as I can with while still being able to see it is part of why I don't or haven't felt like I had to foray into changing that. But I think that'd be a fun one to play with.
Yeah, no, you're right. It does change the same settings in other Office applications. So if you don't want to have it in Word and Excel, PowerPoint, you may not want to do it. But I find the same thing. Like I'm working on a PowerPoint presentation right now, and the slides look normal, but the menu and everything is darker. And so for me anyway, that focuses me more on the content rather than the stuff around it. The second thing I did is the quick access toolbar is something I see a lot of people don't use, and you can really put everything on there that you use. So find the top 10 or 5 commands you use. So in Outlook, that's new email, new appointment, reply, hopefully not reply all, forward, and even some of the buttons with any Office apps you have, like the Dynamics or SharePoint or Wunderlist or Asana or any of that stuff, you can put that on the quick access toolbar, and then I collapse the ribbon, and then you get a nice thin menu that has only the buttons you use, and that 10 to 15% of the screen the ribbon takes up with the million different tabs, that's collapsed, and I can always expand it when I need to. But I very rarely do, only when I need to go change my view settings or something.
Yeah, so a couple things on that. One, in the main Outlook window, I love having the collapsed ribbon. Totally agree with you, and I'll get back to the quick access toolbar in a second here. But I do want to call out that while I may collapse the ribbon in the main window of Outlook, for all of the the kind of sub windows that I have, the ones that pop open, like if I open an email in a new window or an appointment, I keep all of those ribbons.
Okay.
Because I feel like I get pretty good value out of the menu there, and there's not as much competing space on the screen for what I'm trying to look at with that. So a little bit, you can have that level of specificity, some of it just on the main window, kind of keep it collapsed, and then have the rest be expanded.
Well, and I think one thing that I did, I guess what I would say there is if you're using the quick actions, I don't think you can add a quick action to the quick access toolbar.
That's what I was going to get back to there.
You're using a lot of quick actions. Yeah, I got you there. I have used quick actions. I don't use them that often. And for me, if I put the reply button on the quick access toolbar and I open up a message, I can click that and it does it in context with the message I've clicked. So,
yeah, I mean, there's that's exactly the thing I was going to go to. You can add the entire quick actions kind of drop down to it, but it ends up being more fiddly than if you just have the actual entire ribbon showing. But usually when I'm processing email, if it's something I care to keep later on, I don't have an issue kind of opening up the child window of the email itself. So
yeah. Okay. And then the next thing is somewhat related. I am not a fan of the reading pane.
Preach it.
And because if reading pane is maybe helpful for 1 out of every 67 emails. And that's real long emails. You need to read the whole thing. But for most emails, you can read the first 2 to 3 lines and know what it says. Enough to know, do I need to act on this? Do I need to do something? Do I need to reply? Or should I just file this or delete it? And so, I hide the reading pane because it takes up a lot of space and it's distracting. It also slows it down because every time you click on an email, it's got to render the message. And even if that's a few seconds longer, what I do is I expand the number of lines in the message preview to 2 or 3 and then turn off the reading pane.
Yep. Couldn't agree with you more. The reading pane is, well, a pain. And I've tried doing have it open on the bottom half of the mailbox instead of doing the vertical split between them, and I can't get on board with either one. So I get rid of that. I usually do 2 lines for what's showing up in the message preview for when I'm actually looking at that email from the list of emails.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll post the link to the article I wrote. Feel free to add your comments. Did you have any suggestions beyond what I put on my list? What's on your list that I didn't include?
So a couple things. One thing that you didn't necessarily call out in your posts on the article you posted, but I definitely saw, you use conversation view as one of the options in your email, or if you're not, you stole somebody's screenshot who does use conversation.
No, I do, and that's kind of the default option now, I think.
Yeah, it is, and I'm a huge fan of doing that. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you understand what it's doing and the fact that it pulls back email when you expand one of the conversations, you're actually getting not just the things that you've received and that are in that folder, but it'll pull in other items from the same conversation and show you stuff that you've sent, things that you've already archived off into another folder. If you use multiple folders and it's gotten off into somewhere you didn't intend it to be, it's a great little, quick hit productivity gain once you understand how it actually works. So, huge fan of that one.
Yeah, I think the caveat I would put on there, and it works well for me because I'm every day cleaning out my email messages and I'm not leaving things in there for weeks. Mm-hmm. And so, I try not to, my analytics stats for email has gotten as high in certain weeks as like 16 to 17 hours of email. I've gotten that as low as like 11. I can't get it below that for some reason, but if you don't keep up with your email, the problem with Conversation View is the message preview will display the next message in the conversation you haven't read. And I have seen people who aren't on top of their email that fall behind or go away for a few days and check their email and see the preview and not realize that it's not the most recent message.
Oh, okay.
The other thing that I find sometimes is a little bit frustrating is if you have a conversation that has, several messages in it and one of them has an attachment, sometimes going back and finding that attachment can be a little bit a little bit challenging. But on the whole, it's good, and it helps you more quickly process through things. So yeah, I recommend. But you're right. I think it does take a while to get used to.
Yeah. So a couple other things that I'll call out here. If anyone wants to go back and listen to episode 3, I talk a little bit about setting up custom actions for archiving and flagging, and then saved search as part of that. I won't rehash it here in this episode since we already covered that territory, but those are things that very much help from just dealing with Outlook and making sure that it doesn't overrun my day.
Right.
Along those lines, when setting up, both the kind of the custom actions and the saved search, more specifically, getting back to those saved search folders, saving those as favorites in the menu of the left-hand navigation is a nice little win, because then if you are trying to find those search folders again later, they're right up at the top of the list of items that you can click on. And if you can collapse the left-hand kind of tree view navigation of your mailbox, they're still going to show up there. So you can get to, for in my case, the archive, the active archive, the archive where I'm waiting for someone to respond to me, and I can get to those even with that collapsed.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, because your favorites show up on that list, right? If you collapse the folder. And that's the other thing. Another thing I didn't mention on the podcast, but I've also started collapsing the folder pane.
Yeah. Because
you don't need, most of the time you don't need it. You only need it when you need to navigate somewhere else. And by collapsing it, you're just making the interface for Outlook so much simpler.
Yep. Yeah, and if you are a big folder user and you're thinking to yourself, I need to have it there just so I can drag and drop into folders, the shortcut of Control-Shift-V will pull up a list of all of your folders that you can archive your current, or you can move the current message into the folder from that list. So
I still maintain that my right mouse click is faster, because it suggests the most commonly used folders, and typically you're dragging to some commonly used folders. So, but yeah, I've done the Control-Shift-V after you mentioned that. I still go back to my right mouse click.
Hey, you have fun moving your mouse all over the screen.
This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. Follow Matthew on Twitter at @MCAnderson or on his blog, connectingthedata.com. Follow Joel Lindstrom on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. ProdCast and the rest of the CRM Audio Network are available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and anywhere else fine podcasts are available. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcast LLC.